Well, let's talk about another big problem of authoritarianism. And one of the big problems is stupidity. When you have an authoritarian system that allows really stupid people who lack merit to be on top, they do really, really dumb things, and they use force to impose really dumb things that break the system. Which brings me to this tweet by Juliet KM. Juliet is a Harvard professor, remember that point, and a CNN analyst, CEO of Grit Mobility. She tweets, "The Convoy protest, applauded by right-wing media as a freedom protest, is an economic and security issue now. The Ambassador Bridge link constitutes 20% of annual trade between U.S. and Canada. Slash the tires, empty gas cans, arrest the drivers, and move the trucks." Now, I'd like to just start with some rudimentary math. Slash the tires, empty the gas cans, arrest the drivers, and move the trucks. How do you propose to move the trucks after you've slashed their tires, emptied the gas cans, and arrested the drivers?
And how do you actually start moving and actually shipping things from coast to coast or across the borders if you don't have actual trucks to do it in?
She says it constitutes 28% of annual trade because of the truckers. Wow. See, this is why you got to be really careful about despotism and authoritarianism, because this is a Harvard professor telling people this. My response to this was, it's no wonder they think 2 + 2 = 5.
Right.
They can't do basic logical steps.
It was like Joe Biden's infrastructure bill. It's going to cost us $0, and then all of a sudden everybody was like, "How does trillions of dollars cost us $0?" But that's their math. Well, they want it to sound that way, even though they know it's not that way.
When he was saying us, he was referring to like himself and his political allies.
Right.
Like, it's not going to cost us anything.
Yeah,
you guys will pay that bill.
Yeah, we're taking it from your pocket, so it's free for us.
I saw the word security up here. It makes me nervous talking about national security before the show, because it's become such an integral part of our society. This word, this concept, national security, didn't exist before 2003. No one ever talked about it. They used 9/11 and this war in Iraq to justify, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid, and we need to secure you. Let us secure you. And now they're yelling out, "Oh, it's threatening my security." Like, come on,
but
dude.
But let me just stress real quick once again. The security threat is the trade, but it's the truckers who facilitate that trade that she's threatening. It's like, it's a security issue if we can't have trade, so go after those who facilitate it.
Yeah, I mean, is there ever a thank you? Is there ever thank you to the people who brought you your food and all of these unbelievably important things that we have to trade to have a sustainable economy? No.
Well, people are seeing it now, though, aren't they? I mean, look. Every one of our restaurants or our grocery stores are on forced diets. I mean, we see the supply chain issues. We're seeing ships moored off on the coast that, they can't actually come on. We see like the entire breakdown while Pete Buttigieg, goes on vacation and we can't get everything, locked down. But you're right. I mean, the very people who want to attack those responsible for transporting all of those are saying, you're impacting our ability to supply. Well, let's slash your tire. Oh, well, how's that going to help exactly?
Well, it's like an autoimmune disease. How do you destroy an autoimmune disease?
But
treating the symptom without recognizing the disease.
Well, and I want to make a point here. She's referring to these workers standing up for themselves as a security issue because that makes it more difficult for us to have a functioning economy. So if making it more difficult to have a functioning economy is a security issue, then the most violent psychopaths we're aware of are all in government, because currently our national debt is at $30 trillion. And as of January 31st, 2022, that is $90,000 of debt for every living person in the U.S. Right. I just want to say this. If there was a group of rioters or radicals who caused so much damage to the country that it totaled $30 trillion, we would lock them up and throw away the key. Public perception would be completely against them. And yet we praise the state, and when people stand up for themselves and say they're not going to take it anymore, we demonize them and call them the security threat.
We don't. The cult does.
It's true.
And so that's why my attitude's lately just been like, I don't take these people seriously. Especially like, if you look at my Twitter as of tonight, I've just been having so much fun.
Oh, I've seen it. It's been fun to read.
Yeah.
Tim messaged me at 8:30 this morning. He's like, "What if we've been taken over by space mind worms?" I'm like, he's in the right mode right now. Let's find out.
So Ian's always got good, crazy ideas.
Ian's like, Tim rolled a 20.
I was watching. No, it's because I was watching some sci-fi. I can't remember what it was. Where I was watching Peacemaker.
I haven't seen it yet.
So, well, then I can't spoil it.
That's
for
Cena.
you.
Is that Cena? John Cena?
Yeah, John Cena. Man, I guess this is a partial spoiler if you have been watching the series. So you've been warned. I'll give you a few more seconds. I'm going to say it again. I was watching Peacemaker. I think it's a great show. And a component of the show is aliens taking over people's bodies. So I messaged Ian and I was like, what if the aliens are invading the Earth? And that's why they're telling everybody you got to go out and get the injections.
I'm thinking
kidding, by
well,
the
just
way,
to be fair, the
joke.
DoD did unclassify. What was it last year or something that they did actually have unidentified flying objects. It was during the riots, during the COVID lockdown. I felt
Yeah.
like everyone's like had bigger issues. They were like,
revenue.
whatever, UFOs. Yeah,
get
got
out of
it.
the way. They're here.
I'm ready to go out.
I think it might be, well, if it's anything, maybe it's like have you ever seen kymatics where like they vibrate a membrane with sand on it, and then depending on the frequency, it makes these crazy shapes. If you look it up on YouTube, it's kymatics.
sound waves will.
And I wonder if we're being bombarded by vibration from extraterrestrial sources that are causing us to act.
No, we're being bombarded by ignorance sound waves, and that's mostly coming from the left.
It's coming from the TV. It's
Yeah.
coming from cable.
Wi-Fi.
Mainstream,
Well,
mainstream
But
media.
but hold on. So Ian, I wouldn't call that rolling a one. I would say that I like the analogy. Imagine you've got Brian Stelter and Rachel Maddow, and they're both on two different TVs with their resonant frequencies of fake news garbage, and it's making regular people lose their minds.
I took like 5 of my own YouTube videos and turned them all on at the same time and started listening, and it was really soothing. I highly recommend it, Tim. You guys should all try it.
No, I'm good.
The more videos, the better. I have a feeling if you put on like 1,000 videos, it sounds like music, like ocean waves and music or something.
I wanted to go back to a point that you're bringing up, and we discussed it earlier, but talking about this national deficit that we're looking at, I mean, the $30 trillion plus. And I wanted to, one of the things we were discussing was that a lot of people are incorrectly, and Tim, you mentioned something earlier about using the wrong language. And, people are always talking about, we want a balanced budget. We want a balanced budget. But I don't think they understand what that actually means. I mean, that would mean rapid hyper taxation, et cetera, et cetera. I think what people are really trying to say, what we need to control over is, one, yes, we need fiscal conservativity. But what we need to ensure that our GDP to debt ratio is basically what is balanced.
This is modern monetary theory. Like, you can spend as much as you want as long as you're going to create more profit.
That's exactly right. And one of the ways that we are able to continue to thrive is, again, to go back to that America First agenda of looking at domestic production, looking at the ideas of controlling, like President Trump did, where we had oil independency. We weren't approving other people's oil pipelines like Nord Stream 2 for Russia, who's economically advancing themselves and ingratiating themselves with Germany, who they control all their oil and gas. We had our own independence of this. I mean, you think about it. In 2017, in October, we were only importing like 21,000 barrels from Russia. This October, this past one, we imported 216,000 barrels from Russia. So if you look at that, we are literally, with China and Russia, China I always say is the greatest existential threat. But when you look at this, we're literally funding and economically advancing our adversarial nations while increasing our spending and not controlling our GDP to debt ratio.
I think it's on purpose.
Of course it is.
Yeah, Donald Trump was like, let's not do this. And Joe Biden was like, let's do it.
Also, I just want to make a point here. With respect to MMT, I'm against that for a number of reasons, but one of the primary ones is we sort of saw a de facto MMT with the government printing trillions of dollars over the past couple of years, and I don't trust them to have any more influence over the economy than they already have.
The way the Constitution is written is Congress is supposed to control the money, but instead they offloaded the responsibility to the Federal Reserve when they kind of secretly created it over Christmas. Mm-hmm. Now, if we gave the control back to Congress, you saying you'd still be uncomfortable with Congress in control of it?
Yeah, well, I'm uncomfortable with MMT in general for a number of reasons. It's a really complicated topic, but one of the issues with it is they argue we can print as much money as we want and we won't have inflation as long as the economy grows at an equal pace to the amount of money that we're printing.
But see, this is going back to the GDP. This is the GDP to debt ratio.
One of the difficulties with that, though, is then you have to depend upon the government to generate the proper work programs in order to get people fully employed while they're printing all of the money.
This is where I think is the falsity. Like President Reagan used to say, the scariest words ever is that we're from the government. We're here to help.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the reality is that Americans create America jobs.
Yeah.
Every time that the government has tried to come in and build our economy or stop unemployment or things like this, they have failed massively, and they've only served to do things like bailing out of Solyndra. Remember Obama's Solyndra, the $1.1 billion scheme, basically, which what it was. Look, the government needs to get out and stop over-regulating American businesses and allow us. That was a great thing about President Trump's tax reform. I know as a business owner that we were able to take that money and bring on more people in the state of Florida to work for us. And that enabled us to do more with our money. And that's exactly what government is supposed to be doing, is enabling you, not over-regulating you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is interesting because you were sort of mentioning earlier an increase in taxes in order to balance the budget. But what a lot of people don't consider is the fact that tax cuts can actually generate more revenue. And the Trump tax cut was an example of that. The media repeatedly said that we ended up with an increased deficit because of those tax cuts. But that's not true. We ended up with a 5% surplus over what we were expected to have, but we spent 10% more.
Did you see
that's
what
why we had the
Did you see what he did with
deficit.
that money, by the way, which was brilliant? He took some of our extra and additional money and he plussed back up our oil reserves. Did you see what Biden did when he came back in? He actually sold some of our oil reserves to China.
Wow. Amazing.
I mean,
I like to explain this with a story. Many of you may have heard, many of you may not, because I've told it before. But a friend of mine's dad was explaining to me why raising taxes had hurt tax revenue in Cook County, Chicago, basically. And what happened was they increased the tax by like a fraction of a percent. They ended up losing a ton of money because it's the example given to me was he's like, okay, I'm a contractor. I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to do a big order. It's going to be thousands of dollars. At the end of the year, I got to calculate how much I spent at Home Depot every time I went in for supplies. When they raise the taxes, that could be $20,000. If I drive an extra 10 miles, takes a little bit of time out of my day, I save 20 grand, I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
That means the revenue is going to a different county.
Correct.
Well,
So raising the taxes, they lost money.
Yeah,
Right.
and so left-wingers will often scoff at the idea of the Laffer curve, and they'll even call it pseudo-economics. The reality is no competent economist on the left or right denies the existence of the Laffer curve. Left-wing economists tend to say that parabola peaks at a higher tax rate, so they'll say you can tax as much as 70% in certain sectors, and you won't end up negatively affecting revenue. I think that's ridiculous. Conservatives tend to say it's more at 20%, but interestingly enough, the amount of revenue the federal government has pulled in has generally hovered around 20%, regardless of what the tax rate was.
Well, I was thinking about something just with everything that's been going on, especially with the establishment left's opposition to the convoys and everything. We really are in an era where if one side is for something, the other side is against it, which is really dangerous. It leads us to serious conflict. The Alec Baldwin story is a good one. Alec Baldwin should have checked the gun. This should be a grand slam for the left who says we need gun control and regulations. But now all of a sudden they're like, Alec Baldwin did nothing wrong by not checking a gun and shooting him in the chest. It's crazy. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, maybe we should
They
roll
protect
with
their own.
Yeah, well, maybe we should roll with it. And then when they say tax the rich, we say tax the poor. Tax the poor. And
Well, they're
That's
doing
what
that already.
inflation. They're already
I
doing.
know,
That's
I'm
what
kidding.
inflation is.
I mean, look, inflation is essentially, invisible taxation, and we were talking about this earlier.
On the
I mean,
poor, on the poor
specifically.
Well, I mean, the middle class is the one who takes it the most, right? Because that's what they're looking at. Look, there's one economical principle I can guarantee, and this is the principle why socialism doesn't work. You cannot multiply wealth by dividing it. That's a simple and common thing, all right? So, but what they continue to do is they think that I can't get certain tax regulations or tax legislations, in because we don't have the majority in the Senate. We're at a 50-50, and I can't necessarily get it passed because people won't take it on for the left. So what they do is they just continue to print money, and it's just taxation through inflation, which is exactly what they're looking for, or defunding of our military, which we talked about earlier.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.